What'd you do?
Yes,
the official flyer is it is.
And that's pretty well done.
That is.
Right.
I think it's about a recent paper.
Yeah. That's for a clock in my office, volume, right? That hasn't moved at all.
It's right at least twice a day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I was just thinking,
Let's see what 12 is. 3 and 1.
no, I got it.
Okay, hey. I'm just talking about So, my clock says 5:30.
Good evening, everyone. Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Alpine, Texas will hold a regular meeting at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, October 3rd, 2017, in the City Council chambers at 803 West Holland, in the City of Alpine, Texas, for the purpose of considering the text agenda. This notice is posted pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.043, Texas Government Code. And if anyone has a cell phone, if you please turn it off or mute it. Okay, members of the audience will be provided an opportunity to address the council during public hearings and during action items. Please speak into the microphone located at the podium and state your name and address. If you have a petition or other information pertaining to your subject, please present it to the city secretary. State law generally prohibits the council from discussing or taking any action on any issue not included on the agenda. But if appropriate, the council may schedule for future discussion or refer the matter to staff. No personal attacks on council members or city staff will be allowed. The mayor may call a point of order to stop a personal attack if an individual continues to personally attack an elected official or staff member in a meeting. They may be barred from speaking at future meetings. So, call this meeting to order, and the invocation will be by Reverend Virginia.
Dear Lord God, I call upon you to be present with us this evening. You have given us your Holy Spirit to give us guidance and wisdom. Please be with us in our minds and on our hearts as we consider what this council must do this evening in all their decisions. We thank you for all who live and labor and love this area, and that they are here and are interested in helping with the faithful stewardship of all you have given to us. We praise you for the gentle rains, and we praise you for the mild temperatures. We ask you to put upon our hearts and to provide for the elderly in this town as they become less able to safely take care of themselves. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to this flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. City Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Mayor, we do have a quorum and excuse presence from Council Fitzgerald.
Okay.
The notice was posted at 3 p.m. on September 29th, 2017.
We have no presentations or recognitions today, and I don't have a mayor's report. City manager?
No, sir.
No report. Thanks, sir. City staff updates? Any?
No.
None? Then we'll move on to the public hearings. City manager.
Public hearings to obtain citizen views and comments concerning Phoenix Nunez for a zoning change request from R2 to R4 to set up manufactured housing property. Identification street is 1906 West Sol Ross, Alpine, Texas. Legal description, Meta Harms Edition, Block 6, Block 2 through 7. Record owner is Phoenix Nunez.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone here to talk on that? Seeing none, then we'll move on. We'll move to item 6, the consent agenda, the minutes, financial reports, department written reports, board appointment, etc. Notice to the public, the following items are of routine administrative nature. The council has been furnished with background support material on each or it has been discussed at a previous meeting. All items will be acted upon by one vote without being discussed separately unless requested by a council member, in which event the item or items will immediately be withdrawn for individual consideration in the normal sequence after the items do not require separate discussion have been acted upon. The remaining items will be adopted by one vote. City manager.
Approval of minutes from City Council meeting of September 19th, 2017.
An appointment of Chief Pierce for the Planning and Zoning Commission, Ward 2.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
Okay, a motion's been made. Is there a second? Do we have a second? Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote on it. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, signify by saying sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. And we'll move to item 7, information or discussion items. And this will go to Councilman Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got 2 items on the agenda. The first is the board and commission chairs to report their goals and objectives. As you recall, early in the year as we settle in on who the board chairs were, one of the things we said we do is ask each of the chairs to have a discussion with council on their goals, objectives, and perspectives so we can make sure we're aligned. And also see if the board chairs need any help from us. So I thought this would be an opportunity to get 2 of the board chairs to come forward. We have 2 of them scheduled. One of them is here, and the other is working feverishly to get here. So what I thought we'd do is, if it's okay, start with the Animal Advisory Board, which are Ward 1 chairs, and documentation, but this is really a discussion. So saying how this is the first time we've been doing this, and we have 4 other boards and commissions to go through. I thought I'd start off and see if we can facilitate a little bit of discussion.
Okay.
There's 4 things in my view that are important. One is, as we talked about, members' attendance. So I'll, kind of start with that. How are the members doing so that we can make sure all of our representatives are showing up?
The last meeting, the only meeting we've had so far, we were missing 2 people that are on the board, but everybody else showed up. So there were 5 of us there.
Okay.
And so yeah, we were just missing 2 people.
So you've had enough for a quorum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I presume over time, Maria, you'll kind of keep some history about attendance so that when we get around to this next year, we can think about,
I hope so.
do we need to change out some of the members, or they're all showing up?
Yeah.
Okay. Second item, what are kind of the key issues that the Animal Advisory Board is working, and of those issues, where do you think you might need some help from council?
So we've got a couple of things on the agenda tonight that we're going to talk about. But some of the things that came up in our meeting were needing to hire some help at the Humane Society up there at the animal control place. Get some more staff up there, some volunteers or some helpers up there. There just isn't enough. There's a lot of work and not enough people to do it. Another thing we talked about was having a shade structure built for the outdoor kennels, and that's something I'll talk about tonight later in a little bit. That's already in the budget today. We just need to get some bids together for that. and talked about our force permits. And another thing that we talked about, I think we, for in the future is maybe an ordinance update for a trap member release for feral cats. A program that Patsy Colbert wants to put together. She hasn't given a presentation yet, but she will at the next meeting that we're going to have in December.
When you have the discussion looking at that, are you all going to look at all of the city ordinance that we have in animal control? So it's an opportunity for an update on not only feral cat capture and release, but looking at the rest of it.
I guess we can. She wanted to talk specifically about the trap member release program. So, but yeah, I can put that on the agenda to go over all of it. Might as well.
Well,
Yeah.
do you get, when you have your meetings, since animal control was a big topic discussion outline, do you get data on the number of citations that are issued and all those sorts of things that go on from how we build?
Did we get?
No, but Jennifer would flash.
So I think she probably even was able to tell us off of the top of her head some of the numbers, but but I can ask for that too.
Yeah, I just think as we think about part of our role on council, it's how do we make sure that the ordinances are properly addressing concerns that come up and having facts and data, no different than we get from Chief Scowns on a quarterly basis, what's going on in traffic citations and all the police stops.
Yeah.
Probably good to have that because I think that'll help inform us about where we're going to spend time and attention on the ordinance side.
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think Chief Scout did put his report on animal control.
Yeah, and I know it does show up in Judge Sandberg's on the docket. Animal, it'd be worthwhile to look. So I'm not sure how many. Can Jennifer write citations?
I don't know. Can she? I have no idea.
I think she, I'm pretty sure she does.
Yeah, because she's an officer, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
She deals with quite a bit.
Yeah, she's got to deal with those.
Okay.
Okay.
I think in the near future we'll even bring her here
She's
to
going to
give
do
a
the
report.
I'm sure she would know.
Yeah, I think that'd just be a good thing to work. What have you kind of established any goals for the Animal Advisory Committee? And I know you're new to try to sort through and you jumped into it, but have you all settled on any yet?
I think, I don't know if we've set any goals. I mean, the goals that we were talking about was to get somebody hired and to get that shade structure put up. And then Patsy Colbert was going to come at the next meeting with some more things for us to put other goals for us to go for. But it's really what we talked about were those two things. And I went to the Humane Society one, the other meeting, and they talked more about the feral cats, and that was a bigger issue that they talked about. That's not something that we talked about as much in this meeting.
Is the facility, how are we doing with facilities? Are enough space, not enough space?
I think there's enough space. They just need some more shelter for the little animals that are outside. They need to be able to cover them from the sun and from even just from the weather. And that's really, I think that's what they were telling me in the budget to do that. And they just needed to get permission to get the bids for it, to get them for the winter bid.
Anything you're looking for from us and yourself on council?
Well, we'll talk this evening. We'll talk about these things. So it'll be the shelter, the shade to get permission to do the bids, and then to hire a new animal control officer.
How many control officers do we have right now?
Just Jennifer.
Just Jennifer. I thought there were two.
Oh, there's three.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
I thought there was more than Jennifer.
Yeah.
Jennifer Rose and Amanda.
There you go.
You have two part-time people. Okay.
So
Thanks, guys.
we have three.
Good, okay.
So we're Jennifer and Amanda and Rose.
Sure.
Yeah, they wanted to do another full-time kennel helper or another animal control officer.
That's good. And I know we'll get that in the action item. And I mean, I'm kind of want to get this process going, but in terms of asking questions, what are the
Now,
questions you
one,
want?
you have 3 control officers right now. Are they staggered in the times?
I don't know. Yes.
They are. Okay. Well,
They're
that-
like
What
on
goes on
call.
there?
They're on call and they're staggered. They do 7 days a week. So there's usually someone at the shelter and then an on-call person. So sometimes both of them are out on calls. So, but when we get to the action items, I'll see.
you'll explain. Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions, anybody?
No, I mean, I would just rather have a report to go with this next time. From Jennifer, I guess she must know more about what's going on.
Yeah, do we have Jennifer lined up to come see us quarterly or not? Yeah, we probably just want to have her.
Okay.
Yeah, she's been there before.
But I don't think she's lined up on a quarterly
We
basis.
probably want to line up like we've got, the ambulance service. And,
You want them all on the same night?
well, I'd stagger them out. And maybe something you can help us with. What are the ones that we have kind of had the past schedule and then come forward with a recommendation? Because in my mind, we cover it under information and discussion. It's just a way to get the speed of what's going on.
We could do that.
Okay. So you have another item, sir?
So that's the first one. And the next is, hey Bob, how you doing? Why don't you come on up? Bob leads the Building and Standards Commission. So he's the chair for that. And by way of a little bit of background for all of us to remind us, the Building and Standards Commission, which we created, is the one judiciary group that exists amongst the 6 boards and commissions we have. It has the ability to take action and under the guidelines that we put in place, which is under Appendix C, our ordinance section 9 provides all the details about what they can do. But fundamentally, it's to take care of issues that create a safety, environmental, or other hazard relative to buildings. So Bob's just taken over the leadership of that. I know we had a meeting, and so Bob, the discussion is all about, trying to have a dialogue with you aimed at how can we help you. So I'm going to kind of prompt you for some questions unless you'd like to make an opening comment.
All I want to say is we're having trouble making meetings. Our last meeting we had that really we did anything with was in January. Our next scheduled meeting that come up, we had a paperwork snafu. The wrong people got the wrong paper. And then in September, we had another meeting. We meet on the 4th Tuesday of the month. And we had another paperwork snafu. We didn't get all of our papers and our ducks in a row. And not only that, we didn't have any members show up other than myself. And I represent Ward 2.
So we're going to do it.
Yeah, Ward 1, we've had to move, ask a man to lead the building and standards because we can't be on building and standards and anything on the planning and zoning.
Right.
So he decided planning and zoning. So we have an opening in Ward 1 for someone in building and standards.
So
it's not the, okay.
Walls can't fill both roles.
I thought he decided he was gonna stay on buildings and standards and get off of the other.
No, he did the other.
Okay,
We were told, that,
all right,
or at least I was told.
Yeah.
And Rick was there, Cynthia was there.
okay.
And anyways, this meeting didn't work out real well this last time in September because we had 2 people out of town and we had one, our alternate, his wife was having a baby. We're open for another at-large alternate because the charter gives us 2 alternates.
So just from a membership standpoint then, Bob, 5 members, quorum is 3.
Right.
Okay. Maria's gonna go find, she's writing her notes now to go find a replacement for Walls. Ward 2's good. Yeah, your Ward 2. Ward 3, are you confident that the Ward 3 member?
I don't have my sheet with me.
Okay, Ward, you recall, Lucy? That's right, Jerry. And Jerry
Was out of town.
out of town, and Dave Busey was out of town too.
Right.
So, my view is we just gotta make sure our members get there. I've already put a call on Dave, says, hey, Dave, it's the fourth Tuesday of every month. No different than we plan on being in city council. They need to be planning at this.
Yeah, because before it floated. And I almost missed meetings because it floated. And I said, no more. And Cynthia took away, I said, I want the fourth Tuesday of the month.
Yep.
And that's mine. For our building and standards.
And I think a memo should be sent out to all members. It's a 4 Tuesday period.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
And perhaps that will help you get the quorum or more members to show up.
And the way in which their quorum works, if they have 5 members, if the 5 members are there, they're covered. If one of the 5 members isn't there, an alternate fills in. So that alternate can fill in for any of the 5 positions that are there. But all they need is 3, so it's basically 3 out of 7. That's the way the ordinance is set up. My view is we as council have an action to go find the next alternate. So maybe we can put that on the discussion item, and we'll maybe simply we put that on an action item for the October 17th meeting. And if we all think about who might be worthwhile for an alternate, we can have that discussion and make that decision on the 17th. And that way, Bob, then we're going to get you back up to where you need to be. Okay. So, Bob, what are the big issues you see that Building Standards Commission needs to address?
Well, basically, it's the houses that have not been taken care of. They've run down. They become health hazards as well as structural hazards. And some of them, Robert Blanco has tried for years writing letters to people and everything, and they just kind of put it off, I guess. I don't know how else to say it. They just ignore them. And this, what I see the building and standards as being is teeth for him. We've already, in January, we approved one building to be torn down. It was torn down before probably about 18 days.
Yep.
It was down, and the lot's been cleaned off and it looks pretty decent. But we got to keep up with it, and the people have to know that once when Robert does everything he's supposed to do by the charter and by state law, it's coming to us, and we're going to give them alternatives. And we have a whole list of alternatives we can have them do. We can either have them fix it or tear it down, or we can tear it down, and then it means against the property. So they have a bunch of different things. We have to go through and follow the charter. But that's what I see is for us to give teeth to the city inspector and help them out, basically, because people are just totally ignoring people.
Yeah, there's an example of Ward 5. Alpine Heights is one of those. And dealing with the electrical connections were actually burning holes in the roof. Had it not been a metal roof, that place would have burned down. And so building standards took action, caused them to go work it, and so say you got a choice, you can fix it or not, and they got fixed. And you think about the Alpine Heights, how many people live there, huge numbers.
Because we actually had the authority to have all the people move out.
Yeah.
And so
does Robert have a list of the places that he's going to go off and try and work?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so I think that's probably a warning to everyone is to say, if Robert's talked to you, and with the press sitting over here talking about it, if people have gotten a warning from Robert, haven't go work it, now that we've got a city secretary in place, Building Standards Commission's getting settled out, we're going to start doing this in the action statement.
I'm going to follow each and every case that he gives to me all the way through to make sure all of our ducks are in a row before we actually put it on the agenda and we meet. So we don't get halfway through a meeting and find out we didn't do something. because that has happened. And so.
So Bob, what help do you need from us? No, he wonders.
Yeah, have the people show up and just, you know, I understand it's frustrating because I have a meeting in January, and the next meeting is in August. I basically wanted to get it together. I wasn't the chairman at the time. I was trying to get them to say, okay, 4th Tuesday, get it on the city calendar so this area is not utilized. If it is, we move into the other room or whatever the case may be. But, you know, just make it the same time all the time so people can adjust everything around it. I understand emergencies come up. That's 1, 2 people. That's not, you know, 6 out of the 7. So.
Well, I used to get a call from Diana for the planning and zoning. I don't know if she's still doing that, but maybe that needs to also happen.
The secretary or the receptionist calls everybody for our September meeting, and I know for sure, and because she gives me a checklist of who she called. And
those are just courtesy calls.
Right.
You know, but when you get into the member positions for these commissions, I mean, you have a responsibility to show up. You know that it's the 4th Tuesday of every month, so put it on your calendar. You know, and she does it on a courtesy, but if she's overwhelmed, she may not get the call out.
Yeah. So what time on Tuesdays?
5:30.
5:30.
Yeah.
And I got a call the Tuesday of the meeting, probably 9:30, 9:45. And when I saw the number, I knew exactly who it was. Because that's the way it's always been. She's always called at least me.
Good.
And packets go out the Friday before.
Yeah, see, they've got a formal agenda as well. This is a legal entity, so they have a formal agenda goes out.
And
We have all the background documentation. It is as stringent, if not more stringent, than planning and zoning or council.
Everyone gets sworn in.
Oh, yeah.
Every time they do a statement, everyone swears in.
Yeah, that's interesting. I swear to all the truth, nothing but the truth. Yes, I read all those. Yes, because it's a judicial body. Okay. Any other questions for Bob?
No. Thank you.
Hey, Bob, thanks for showing up.
All right, sure.
And we'll get your people.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, the next item I have then is the discuss the ethics policy regarding inclusion of the city council and the mayor. If you recall at the last meeting, the council approved the section 9,000, the code of ethics, personnel policies and guidelines that's in our pack, and not in this pack, but was in the last meeting. And so we went through that, and the question I raised, and we had a discussion with our city attorney, with Dr. Ruiz, was, gee, how come it says that it does not include independent contractors or city council members? And I said, I think it should. And particularly if you look at the last page of this document on under compliance, paragraph B, subsection 3, it says all employees and city council members participate in annual trainings and ethics and compliance program and ethical behavior. And each person shall sign a document acknowledging their receipt and understanding of the policies and requirements and on ethical behavior generally. So it's my opinion that we ought to strike the words city council member out of this because I think it ought to apply to all of us. So the reason I wanted to bring this back in is to invite you all to take a look at it. We bring it back to the October 17th city council meeting for an up down to say we want to include ourselves in the highest things. Business to put in. So
I think we should all be part of it. Okay.
So when you're talking about, like, on the top it says city of Alpine, are you talking about, you know, I mean, it doesn't specify, you know, city employees. Are you talking about the whole city of Alpine?
no, it does apply to city employees. It goes down. It says Code of Ethics 90010. It goes through definitions, benefit.
Right, but the title, like right here, it says city of Alpine.
Oh yeah, I don't think that's our personnel policy section. I wouldn't change it. It's how all our policies, our personnel policies are.
So like if we have this like on the policies and procedures, why are we doubling this? I mean, because, I mean, I have gone through the personnel policies and procedures, like how it's chartered, and that's a lot of the stuff, it's like duplicated.
So I went through, I didn't see everything listed here in our charter. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up. It's not all listed. If you look at the reforms I talked about, the conflict of interest is definitely covered. That's covered by Texas statute, and we have to follow that. But all the other items, which if you go into standards of conduct under B1 through B1A through L, we're asking all employees, I can't find this for council. If you think it's all there, I'd love to see it. I talked to Adolfo. He said, well, no, it is not all there. And that's why my view is if we ask the employees to do it, we just have to send them the same thing. I think it's already covered. I'd like to see it. I can't find it.
We do have a section, if I may, in the charter under conflicts of interest, 9.01, with regard to financial interest and honorariums.
Yes, I'm with you on that, Adolfo. I just don't think it covers A through L.
Yeah.
Does it?
It covers it in general sense with regard to financial interests, direct, indirect, or otherwise. This on B, it kind of breaks it down, so there isn't any question if there's any gray area in the general provision here with regard to A through F.
Well, I'm looking at everything else down to L. So I would invite, let's go take a look. We come back after the discussion. But my view, if we ask the employees to do something, I don't see why we shouldn't ask ourselves to do exactly the same thing. That's
I totally agree. I think council somehow it should also be included. But at the same time, for consideration and in the spirit of discussion, they will also apply to appointed officials in the various commissions, the advisory committees, and commissions.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, because they're not employees. It does apply to volunteers. But I think the point you're raising, term employee, including volunteers, including all of our elected officials. Yeah, I think it's a great thing. Great. Okay. So I'll bring it back to I'll put on the next one and set up here. Good. Thanks. And Mr. Mayor, that's all they
Okay. Action items become like to 10 meeting. Citizens are allowed to comment, limit to 3 minutes, and be actively confirmed by the citizens required to state their name and the will to reside. Priority will be given to the citizens of Alpine and perform business or property of the city. Individuals who do not live in or own a business or property in the city limits of Alpine will be allowed to speak for this time related.
Oops, I'm up again. Okay. Has to do with check writing, the updated signatories for the city of Alpine checking accounts. The reason I added this on here is we had a discussion last week about this. Eric Zimmer put on the table. We've had them traditionally in the past have 4 individuals in order to make sure we always have 2 individuals sign. And Megan, remind us who are the current signatories on our checking account.
Eric Zimmer, Gerald Soya, Jay Morey, and Jimmy.
Okay.
2 of which are no longer.
So 2 of which are no longer here. And so my recommendation would continue to be Jay Horry. I'd recommend putting Chief Scales back on. And did you have a 4th name?
I figured leave it blank until we have a new city manager so that person.
Okay. So I propose that our updated signatories for the city of Alpine changing account would be Jay Horry, Russell Towns, and Harold Scales.
Okay, is there a second discussion? Got a question. You got two. On that one, can we get somebody else paid from the office? Do that.
One of the challenges is you don't want to have someone who works for Megan. And so that's, if there's someone from Megan's organization, that would be fine. That there lies the issue. Potential, if Megan is the one keeping the books, in terms of our cleanliness, making sure there's never a possibility that, hey, you're going to sign this. You don't want to put Megan in that situation. So that's right.
Rather than this kind of be more about.
I don't think we need to like internal department. Some other employees are good as far as enforcement.
Oh, yeah, well, I would make it. Yeah.
But I don't think we need to go down into the departments.
Why can't we put Cynthia videos on here?
It would be good though, since she's here
She's here all the
at the office.
So I'll amend the motion to include J. Hoy, Russell Scouts, Darrell Estrella, and Cynthia Price.
Any more discussion?
Is there a second to that amendment?
So, I'll entertain a vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, like sign, motion carries. Okay. And then we'll go to item 9. City Manager.
Discuss and consider the first reading of ordinance -10-01 concerning Felix Nunez, application for a zoning change, request R2 to R4 to set up housing. Location, street, South. Legal description is Mecca, lot 227, record 3, students.
So I'll make the motion so we get discussion. I'll move that we approve the first reading ordinance 17-18-1
There's a second. Are you a second? Second. Any discussion?
Oh, did planning and zoning bless this? Okay.
So anybody else? There we go. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Sign. Motion carries. Thank you. And we'll move to item number 10.
It's close to forward.
It's a permanent street protected outside out. It's $10,000 by the city. So I have a letter to be read out to that. So, but that's what I was for the shade. Already been budgeted and it's just.
Yes.
Motion to discuss $10,000 for the outside shade.
So you'd like to make the motion to approve. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Request for consent from the shelter.
I'd like to make a motion to approve. Discussion. For the outside.
To approve the shelter or shade. Whatever shade.
Request bids.
Request bids.
For the shade canopy. Outside. Hey, you got it. I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion's been made.
Now,
And now we have.
so this is for outside. What sort of outside animals do we have? We have big dogs and these pigs and hogs.
So when you come outside of the animal shelter, they have one side that's already covered. It's they're all in little cages, and then across the walkway, cages that are put there, they're covered with tarps, the weather, little dogs. It's just to keep those animals comfortable.
You're seeking to also to ask for bids. How many bids?
So, typically, I do local, only have to go for bids over 50,000. I do have one comment to make. Unfortunately, when you say it's budgeted, it truly is not a budgeted item in the budget. Budgeted, it would have been a separate line item that would have been for capital improvement. It's in the 5-year capital plan as a possibility to be targeted with this fiscal year's budget. So there needs to be discussion with the supervisors as far as where exactly they want to take the money from, because it would affect their maintenance on their building for the year. It would affect their animal care for the year to come up with where the money is actually taken from. I think there might have been some miscommunication on that end. It's not that it's not possible, it's just having to reconfigure how they want to spend their money for the year. And since it is only the third week of the fiscal year, they might want to sit down and talk with you and figure out, and talk to myself and the Humane Society, which direction they want to go.
So there's not a specific line item.
No.
The department has its budget.
Yes.
There's a view that there's probably sufficient resources to meet the need, bid, and how they might want to allocate the resources.
Yes, because they would have to reduce another line item in their budget in order to pay for it. There wasn't a significant increase in their overall budget, just a little bit in their animal care and then the maintenance of the facility. But the maintenance of the facility includes the facility as a whole. So that includes any repairs, cleaning that they do as far as their AC, their heating, cages, just the everyday wear and tear of the facility. So in the 5-year capital plan, which is where it's actually listed, it's targeted to use the actual budget, but it have to take into consideration where they want to get the money, how much money it is.
So if I understand this correct, they go ahead and get the bids, but they can't take any action on building it until it's discussed to see where the monies are coming from, correct?
Correct.
So in essence, we would have to table this motion until after discussion.
Well, but this is a request to go get bids.
Okay.
It's not an expenditure of funds.
So you're not gonna, after you get the bids, you're not gonna be seeking to build it until after the discussion.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that way you go get bids and you come back and you sort of game line. Is this a solid structure, Maria, or it sounds like it's you got trucks coming right now?
Well, it's little. It's not a solid structure. It's the little cages.
Oh.
Like little fence, little areas.
Right now, it's just kennels. I mean, the report of kennels that they have set.
Oh, really is? Oh, okay.
Are they on concrete or on?
On the ground.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, that's not good.
Okay.
Either way, don't want it.
So my view is you go get your bids and you come back and we'll talk about it. Yeah.
I'm just curious, I have no question about the bidding process and getting bids and moving forward, we're trying to provide the proper shelter for these animals they deserve it for one. And besides, they're under our care and we need to care for them. But my question is, what's happening now when there is inclement weather? When it's too cold or it's too hot, you move them indoors or are they just out there?
But they're just outside.
Indoors. When the weather's bad, inside the building, there's a little puppy room where there's space. And there are also some stacked kennels. And so they move, if the weather is bad, And at night, they move those animals into the
So the canopy that we're talking about, that is to provide extra cover to the
So
structures.
what you have there is like chain link, you have big kennels, you have also smaller ones. And I've been there for like nearly 3 years, and we have gone through lots of tarps, lots of other items that we have tried. We need something permanent over this area so that the wind blows, it tears any tarp you put up there, and if it's any other kind of thing, it's not stable enough, the wind just blows it up and down and makes lots of noise and disturbs the animals, and we need something that actually will cover it.
So it'd be a permanent.
Yes, something over that entire area so that everything underneath there will have.
And I think we should also look at it, we're gonna put a permanent cover, that in the future, we're gonna put a cement slab there for them. So whoever puts the bid also needs to take that into consideration, that in the future, a slab could be poured there. So that we don't have to tear it down and go ahead and put another one up there.
How many animals do we have out there right now?
Yes, ma'am.
As of today, there are 10 dogs and 24 cats within the shelter that cover up under the city. 4 of those cats are at the thrift store on Northwest Street.
Okay.
And it fluctuates wildly from week to week.
So, any more discussion? Then let's go ahead and act on it. All those in favor of the motion? Raise your hand. All those opposed, like sign, motion carries. Okay, get your 3 bids and then we're gonna get some discussion with on the budget.
Okay, next one, thank you. Discuss and consider a request from the Animal Advisory Board that the city hire a new animal control officer to help with the feeding and maintenance at the Alpine Animal Shelter. So the on-duty animal control officer has backup. And if that cannot be done, then a full-time kennel help position would be recommended.
So this is, I'm sorry. So this will be a temporary individual.
Excuse me, we need a motion.
I'm sorry.
So I move that we discuss and consider requests from the Alpine Animal Advisory Board that the city hire a new animal control officer. So that the animal control officer on duty has backup, and if that cannot be done, then a full-time kennel help position would be recommended.
Okay, is there a second? One second. Okay, motion been made, second. Any discussion?
So, we have any idea what we're talking about from a dollars and cents standpoint and where that money would come?
So what I've gotten from the last meeting we had, the estimate for a full-time kennel help would be $17,000 a year. And, but ideally they would like to hire another animal control officer, and that would be $22,000 a year.
Okay, run that again.
So 17 for full-time kennel help.
Okay, that's kennel.
And for the animal control officer would be 22.
That's in addition.
Or,
Okay.
but ideally they would like to get another animal control officer in
Okay, you have to be right now, correct?
And what is the budget for my board today?
there. No, I don't know what the budget says.
She's using the calculator right now.
Well, actually, because your figures would be incorrect.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm the bearer of bad news tonight. So we hire a full-time employee starting off at 10. So a full-time kennel help would actually just their pay would be $20,800. That doesn't include all the benefits of the position, which would include health insurance. So there's another $8,000 plus the retirement and our portion of FICA. So something to take into consideration, and that's just for a part-time kennel help or full-time kennel help. I'm sorry. The Animal control officer is actually a different rate. And I want to say the average is $11.50. I can't remember off the top of my head. I apologize. Which would be $23,920 for just their base pay. That doesn't include insurance and all the benefits. It also doesn't include when you have another additional officer that you would need additional equipment and training as well. In order to run them all at the same time, you would need an additional vehicle, uniforms, the training, any other equipment that they need, including the kennels to go in the back of the vehicle that will be used. There is nothing in the budget currently for this. If it was decided to be moved forward, you'd have to amend the budget. That would have to be a discussion as far as where you would amend the budget from. You would most likely have to reduce the expenses from one department or line item in order to fulfill the other. On the revenue side, once again, we just started the fiscal year, so we don't have that excess, revenue side to be able to apply it to additional expenses in order to stay balanced. A pretty in-depth conversation you need to have as far as where you want to pull the revenue from. Okay, so they do have 2 part-time kennel help who are paid a little bit less than 10. I believe they're at, off the top of my head, I can't remember. So it's kind of a leaky, I hope it's
What isn't getting done now? Because there's clearly sounds like a need, but such as something's not getting done. Or is it just, we got too many people working all the time?
I think they need help cleaning the kennels and that kind of thing. Just the feeding and cleaning is what they need for sure. They're talking about losing some of their long-term volunteers and then not having enough people to fill the void.
Okay.
So, yes, ma'am. Yes, please.
Cheryl Lincoln's Ward 3. I'm an AlpineCityCouncil member, and I've been volunteering at the shelter for nearly 3 years. And indeed, some of the volunteers are getting older, and they've pretty much been responsible for cleaning the cat areas and cleaning the kennels in the mornings. And some of these people are no longer going to be able to do that. I volunteer as a Humane Society member to enrich the lives of animals. I walk dogs, I assist in play groups, which are held in a large enclosed area where the dogs can play with each other. If I have to stop and clean a kennel before I can put a dog back in, that takes time away. The animals' lives that I haven't gotten to yet. The animal control officers provide food, water, shelter, enforce the ordinances. And they don't have time to do those enrichment activities. And that's what I think volunteers there should be doing and not cleaning kennels. I think the ACOs there do a great job. Their overtime is limited. So a lot of times I hear people complaining because the ACO hasn't gone out on the call when they don't realize they can't go out. They're not going to be paid. They cannot get the overtime. So I realize it's not the budget. I realize it's a real problem. I just want you to see from a volunteer's point of view that I really do feel these people work hard and they do need help.
Thank you. I don't think there's any denying they do work hard, because I've been out there several times, but we thought of reaching out perhaps to the college, get some of the young kids involved in the community.
I guess just to rehash in my mind information that was considered during the beginning of our meeting. Now, I understand there's 3 full-time positions and there's 2 part-time positions. What does part-time mean? They work 30 hours a week?
Each of the kennel help part-time work 20 hours a week, well, 21 hours a week. My understanding is that they're there to clean the kennels. That's why they're called kennel help. And there's 2 of them.
Are there any volunteers?
I can't account for volunteers. I've not been I know the Humane Society helps, that's all.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I speak to this?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Hi, Marla Cersei. I live in Ward 1. Business in town, and I'm a member of the Alpine Humane Society. I'm also a volunteer, like Cheryl. I deal more with the cats, but all of us are very concerned. Those of us who spend any time at the shelter, it is abundantly clear that depending on what's going on with the number of animals at the shelter, which, as I mentioned earlier, wildly fluctuates, there are just not enough people there to do the bare minimum. The animal control officers are currently 3 full-time, and they're all excellent, and they all care so much about the animals, and they can't even cover the basic needs of the animals. If it weren't for the 2 part-time kennel cleaners and a whole cadre of Humane Society volunteers, that shelter would not be able to function. It would be a mess. The part-time kennel help is 1.5 hours a day. That's not enough to clean. For example, right now, there are 20 cats at the shelter, 10 dogs. A few weeks ago, we had, I believe, over 25 dogs. The Humane Society has been running some dogs up to Colorado because there aren't enough homes for them here. There's kitten season is coming around again. At any given moment, that shelter, there's some days where 20 new cats come in one day. And so in essence, the shelter could not function now with just the actual paid staff. It's relying on volunteers. Several of those really dedicated volunteers have been doing this for 10 years, and they're going to retire soon. They're tired of going 6 in the morning cleaning cages. And the other thing is that the animal control officers, they're not just at the shelter, as probably most of you realize. They're doing really a number of jobs. They are part of the police department. They have to be ready to go out on calls to enforce the city ordinances. Often they can't attend to those. They really, ideally, should be able to be, one of them should be able to be on call, patrolling streets, enforcing animal codes. You know how so many of us have so many animals here. And there's a lot of clash there. And oftentimes they're trying to juggle going out on calls, enforcing codes, with taking care of all the animals that are homeless that are in the shelter. And the Alpine Humane Society is providing, the volunteers are providing a whole bunch of other services. So it's already inadequate. And if one of those animal control officers needs to move on to a new job or leave the area, then we have a serious loss. And if there's one more animal control officer, so 4 of them, it would allow for the ones on duty to be able to adequately respond to calls with the volunteers still, and allow for a little more leniency and coverage for time off, and if there is attrition. We feel like it's imperative that the city staff the shelter more than it has been. It's a bare minimum at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, it kind of puts us in a bind because I wish this had been brought up earlier before the budget. And then we could have worked with it. But right now we have a budget, like Nathan says, we have to review it, see if we can do anything about it. But I'll certainly do my part, and I'll go down to the college and ask for volunteers there. I talked to one of the professors there, he's trying to get some of the students involved in the community. And perhaps that would help you for the time being. But again, we have the budget restraints that we have to go through. And, it's not that we're trying to be cold-hearted or anything like that, because I'm an animal lover myself. But we do have to stick with our budget also.
So when would be a good time to try to get this on the budget for next year?
We probably want like August.
Yeah, we just passed the budget.
Yeah,
So what's today? Today's the 3rd? We just started 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So we're
And the budget gets approved when?
once a year. We just approved it for last meeting.
And Megan would be probably the best one to answer that.
The first workshop usually starts in June.
June they do.
So you would need to get stuff in probably April.
Yeah. Yeah, start getting that going.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion?
proposal, we table the item, and see if there's more data that comes forward.
Right. Is there a second?
Second that.
Okay.
You okay with that?
Motion made.
Did you close it?
Yeah.
And second, any discussion on table in the meantime? Seeing none, let's go to the vote. All those in favor of tabling the motion? All those opposed? Okay, motion be tabled. Thank you. And we'll move on to item 12. City council members' comments and answers. And we'll start with you.
Thank you guys for coming, and you guys, thanks for coming up and speaking, and Megan, thank you also for, I'm sorry I didn't have better information to offer. Thank you guys.
I also would like to thank the folks over here, representing the Animal Advisory Board and the housing standards. I hope we can do more of this. We're here for after board meetings, etc. I think that information is not only good for the council, but if we can somehow get that information onto a website to allow our public to also be educated in the same class, that would be great.
Thank y'all for coming.
Yeah, I'd like to add the two comments. I think this has been a good meeting. Good elements of discussion, engagement with the audience, and my push is to continue to make sure we'll have the other four commissions and board members lead so we can have that discussion. This is all about, we can sit here and do about budget and strategies and like that, but it takes everyone in the community. So thanks all for coming.
Yeah, and you know, it was good. We learned good discussion, a lot of educational information being put out there also. Now we know about the budget and when y'all should start looking forward to start planning. And again, you know, we have our budget, we just passed it, so the budget is set. And hopefully we can work with the animal shelter next year. But in the meantime, I'll commit to contact the college and see if we can get y'all some help out there. Okay. And thank everyone for coming this evening. We appreciate it. And you know, we're getting more and more folks coming to the meetings that what we had in the past. So that's fantastic. We got more community involvement. That's what I like to see. Thank you all very much. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, move to adjourn.
Okay. Okay, motion been made. That's not debate. Reverend, thank you very much.